Most people believe that aging means losing mobility, depending on others, and accepting pain as something inevitable. But what if it didn't have to be that way? Imagine being over 80 years old and still being able to get up from a chair on your own, bend down effortlessly to pick something up from the floor, walk upright with confidence, and enjoy life without the constant fear of falling. For many, it seems like an impossible dream, but on the other side of the world, it is an everyday reality. In Japan, one of the countries with the highest life expectancy on the planet, thousands of elderly people in their 60s, 70s, and even over 80 live with a vitality that puzzles experts. They move with ease, grow their own food, cook, socialize, and maintain an independence that in other parts of the world is lost decades earlier. Why is that? It's not luck, nor magical genetics, nor expensive treatments. Their secret lies in something much simpler, within everyone's reach, and it consists of 6 everyday movements, natural postures they have always practiced and repeat every single day. These movements, although they seem basic, activate deep muscles, improve balance, strengthen bones and joints, optimize circulation, and keep the nervous system alert. They are such simple gestures that you can do them at home, without equipment, without paying for gyms, without excuses. And that is why today you are going to discover what those 6 Japanese movements are, why they work, and how to incorporate them into your daily life so that aging is not synonymous with decline, but with strength, stability, and independence. Movement 1. Lateral raises. Lateral raises are one of the most effective and at the same time most underestimated movements when it comes to training the shoulders. Their main goal is to work the medial deltoids, which are the muscles located on the lateral part of the shoulder and responsible for giving it width, volume, and that V shape that enhances the figure in both men and women. From an anatomical point of view, the medial deltoid is in charge of arm abduction, that is, moving the arm away from the body in a lateral plane. Although it may seem like a simple gesture, activating it in isolation is not easy, since in most compound pushing exercises, such as bench press, dips, or push-ups, the anterior deltoids and the pectorals usually dominate, leaving the lateral deltoid in a secondary role. This explains why many people, despite training consistently, achieve strong shoulders but little front development, which generates the impression of a flat and poorly proportioned torso. Training science supports the importance of including specific isolation exercises for this muscle group. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that lateral abduction movements with moderate resistance achieve significantly greater electromyographic activation in the medial deltoid than other traditional pushing exercises. Moreover, working this muscle is not only an aesthetic matter. Well-developed lateral deltoids contribute to improving scapular stability, reducing excessive load on the upper trapezius, and balancing strength between the anterior and posterior parts of the shoulder, thus reducing the risk of injury. When performed correctly, lateral raises also involve stabilizing fibers and synergistic muscles such as the supraspinatus, part of the rotator cuff, which is essential for maintaining long-term joint health. From a preventive perspective, this type of training helps counteract the effects of a sedentary lifestyle and prolonged postures in front of the computer, which tend to accentuate shoulder rounding and weakness of the deep stabilizers. Now, the key is not in moving heavy weights, but in prioritizing technique, control, and muscle activation. Many beginners make the mistake of choosing dumbbells that are too heavy or resistance bands that are too strong, which causes the movement to turn into trunk swinging rather than focused shoulder work. The most effective recommendation is to select a load that allows you to raise your arms laterally to shoulder height, with elbows slightly bent, holding a brief pause at the top, and descending slowly to take advantage of the eccentric phase. This negative phase is fundamental, since according to research on muscle hypertrophy, it is what most stimulates adaptation and fiber growth. In fact, recent studies show that muscles respond better to controlled, prolonged contractions than to fast repetitions with excessive weight. Furthermore, performing raises with resistance bands has the advantage of offering progressive resistance, lighter at the beginning of the movement and more intense at the maximum contraction point, which promotes complete activation of the medial deltoid and reduces the risk of overloading the shoulder joint. Movement 2. Pike push UPS. Pike push-ups are much more than a variation of the classic push-up. They represent the gateway to developing vertical pushing strength, a fundamental pattern both in calisthenics and in functional training. While traditional push-ups prioritize the pectorals and anterior deltoids, pike push-ups shift the axis of the load towards the shoulders, especially the anterior and medial deltoid areas, while also intensely involving the triceps and upper trapezius. From a biomechanical point of view, this exercise reproduces in a simplified way the movement of an inverted military press, since the 90 degrees angle between the torso and the legs simulates the position of an overhead push. This mechanics is vital because, in calisthenics, advanced movements such as the handstand push-up or the planche require not only brute strength but also the ability to stabilize the body in inverted positions. In fact, several electromyography studies have shown that vertical pushing exercises activate up to 20 to 30% more deltoid fibers compared to horizontal patterns, making them an irreplaceable stimulus for complete shoulder development. Beyond aesthetics, the real value of pike push-ups lies in their ability to improve scapular stability and neuromuscular function. The inverted V position forces the core, spinal erectors, and even the glutes to work together to maintain alignment, which makes this exercise a full body movement with a strong emphasis on the upper area. In terms of progression, elevating the feet on a stable surface increases the angle and load on the shoulders, bringing the practitioner closer to the exact mechanics of handstand push-ups. From a scientific perspective, this gradual progression is supported by the principles of progressive overload training, which state that increasing the angle or resistance in a controlled way is the key to stimulating sustainable muscular and neurological adaptations. In addition, by working within a closed and controlled range of motion, direct stress on the glenohumeral joint is minimized, making it a safer exercise to strengthen the shoulder without the risk of subacromial impingement that heavy-loaded presses sometimes cause. For older adults or people seeking functional longevity, pike push-ups offer additional benefits. They improve balance by training body awareness in inverted positions, enhance upper body bone density thanks to mechanical load, and reinforce motor coordination, all factors associated with a lower risk of falls and greater independence in old age. Movement 3. Wall sit. The wall sit is a low-impact isometric exercise that tests the muscular endurance of the legs and postural control. Unlike dynamic squats, in this movement the body remains static, with the back supported against the wall, the knees bent at 90 degrees, and the feet firmly planted on the ground. This position intensely activates the quadriceps, glutes, and hamstrings, but it also involves the stabilizing musculature of the hips, calves, and core, making it an extremely complete tool for strengthening the lower chain. From a biomechanical perspective, prolonged isometric contraction produces a sustained increase in intramuscular tension, which promotes hypertrophy of type I fibers, fatigue-resistant, and contributes to the improvement of localized muscular endurance. Furthermore, studies published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research have shown that isometric exercises like the wall sit are highly effective in reducing blood pressure in people with hypertension, due to the vascular adaptations they generate in peripheral capillaries and arteries. This dual function, muscular conditioning and cardiovascular benefit, makes the wall sit especially valuable for older adults or individuals looking to gain strength without overloading their joints. Beyond strength and cardiovascular health, the wall sit provides significant postural and neuromuscular benefits. By keeping the back straight against the wall, the practitioner trains spinal alignment and the neutral position of the pelvis, two critical aspects for preventing chronic lower back pain and intervertebral disc degeneration. At the same time, the ability of the stabilizing muscles to sustain loads in prolonged positions is strengthened, which has a direct transfer to daily life activities such as standing for long periods, getting up from a chair, or climbing stairs. From a sports performance point of view, the wall sit improves lactic acid tolerance and the ability of muscles to work under fatigue, which is key in disciplines that demand repeated power such as cycling, running, or team sports. Even research in orthopedic rehabilitation has pointed out that this exercise helps accelerate recovery after knee injuries, by strengthening stabilizers without imposing excessive stress on the joints. In other words, the wall sit is much more than a simple static exercise. It is a bridge between strength, endurance, and joint health, accessible to all ages and levels. Including it in a routine not only builds strong legs, but also strengthens the heart, protects posture, and ensures a more functional and resilient body with the passing of the years. Movement 4. Face pulls with rings. The face pull with rings is one of the most underestimated yet at the same time most transformative exercises for the health and aesthetics of the shoulders. Unlike traditional pushing or pulling movements, this one focuses precisely on the posterior deltoids, the rotator cuff, infraspinatus, teres minor, and supraspinatus, and the scapular stabilizers such as the middle and lower trapezius and the rhomboids. From a biomechanical standpoint, it is a key exercise to counteract the muscular imbalances generated by modern life, spending hours sitting in front of a computer, hunched forward with shoulders rolled in and the neck projected. These habits shorten the pectoral muscles and weaken the posterior musculature, which leads to a kyphotic posture, cervical pain, and greater risk of rotator cuff injuries. Studies in physical therapy and sports rehabilitation have shown that face pulls significantly increase the activation of the lower trapezius and external rotators, two of the most critical muscle groups for glenohumeral stability and the prevention of dislocations and tendinitis. The use of rings, instead of fixed pulleys, adds a component of instability that requires the nervous system to make constant adjustments in trajectory, thus increasing joint proprioception and fine scapular control, which makes this movement not only a strengthening tool but also one of motor re-education. Performing face pulls with rings correctly means focusing on the quality of contraction rather than the number of repetitions. The most common mistake is pulling with the biceps, when in reality the action must originate in the shoulders and the retraction of the shoulder blades. By keeping the elbows elevated and aligning the hands with eye level, the exercise becomes a direct stimulus for the posterior deltoid, a small but essential muscle for giving the shoulder three-dimensional volume and support to the rest of the joint. Furthermore, by working with adjustable angles depending on the body's inclination, the difficulty level adapts both to beginners and advanced athletes, always respecting the principle of progression. From a longevity standpoint, including this movement in a regular routine helps reduce the incidence of impingement syndrome and chronic shoulder pain, conditions that affect up to 67% of older adults over 60 according to recent clinical reviews. But beyond prevention, this exercise offers a notable aesthetic benefit: rounder shoulders, a more defined back, and an upright posture that conveys youth and vitality. In other words, face pulls with rings are not just an exercise to detail the back, but a long-term investment in mobility, stability, and joint health. If you want to maintain strong, resilient, and functional shoulders into advanced age, this movement should have a fixed place in your training. Movement 5. Glute bridge. The glute bridge is an apparently simple movement, but scientifically one of the most complete for hip health, posterior chain strength, and the prevention of lower back pain. It consists of lying on your back, with knees bent and feet flat on the floor, and then lifting the pelvis by contracting the glutes until forming a straight line from the shoulders to the knees. Although it may seem like a basic exercise, biomechanical studies have shown that it very effectively activates the gluteus maximus, the most powerful muscle in the human body, responsible for hip extension, pelvic stability, and postural control. The maximum contraction that occurs at the top of the bridge recruits fast-twitch muscle fibers, essential for power production and for counteracting the age-related loss of muscle mass. Moreover, this exercise activates the gluteus medius and minimus, essential stabilizers that prevent knee valgus, thus reducing the risk of meniscus and cruciate ligament injuries. Research published in the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy has pointed out that the glute bridge is one of the most effective tools to re-educate the hip extension motor pattern, especially in people who present gluteal inhibition from spending many hours sitting. In other words, this exercise not only strengthens but also wakes up the glutes so that they fulfill their natural function in every daily movement. The benefits of the glute bridge go far beyond aesthetics or simple muscle strengthening. From a functional health perspective, this exercise is key to reducing the incidence of chronic lower back pain, a condition that affects up to 80% of the population at some point in their lives. By activating the glutes and spinal erectors in a balanced way, excessive load on the intervertebral discs is reduced and the lumbar area is stabilized, which protects the spine against sudden movements and repetitive strain. Moreover, by working in a low-impact position and with a controlled range of motion, the The glute bridge becomes an excellent option for older adults or people in rehabilitation, as it improves strength without compromising the joints. From a sports perspective, this movement is the basis of more advanced progressions such as the hip thrust, which has been linked to significant improvements in sprint speed and vertical jump ability, due to the direct transfer of hip extension strength. Finally, this exercise also improves blood circulation in the pelvis and lumbar region, promoting muscle oxygenation and reducing stiffness associated with a sedentary lifestyle. Movement 6. Stretching with resistance band. Stretching with a resistance band represents one of the most effective and safest ways to improve flexibility, joint mobility, and muscle recovery. Unlike traditional static stretches, bands introduce progressive resistance that stimulates not only the lengthening of muscle fibers but also neuromuscular activation. This combination, known in physiology as proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, increases the muscle's ability to relax and elongate beyond its usual limits, generating significant improvements in joint range of motion. In addition, the variable resistance offered by the band allows the stretch to be adapted to each person's level. The more the band is stretched, the greater the tension applied, making this method safe both for beginners and advanced athletes. Various studies published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research have shown that band-assisted stretches can improve functional mobility by up to 20% in just 6 weeks of consistent practice. From an anatomical perspective, the use of bands works not only large muscles such as hamstrings, quadriceps, or lats, but also deep stabilizing muscles that are rarely stimulated with conventional stretches. This makes it a valuable tool for preventing muscle imbalances, releasing accumulated tension from prolonged postures, and preparing the body for more demanding workouts. Beyond flexibility, stretching with a resistance band offers direct benefits to joint health and overall well-being. By mobilizing joints under controlled resistance, the production of synovial fluid is stimulated, which improves lubrication and decreases friction between cartilages, thus reducing the risk of stiffness and degenerative arthritis. It also promotes blood and lymphatic circulation, which accelerates muscle recovery by eliminating waste metabolites and bringing fresh oxygen to the tissues. In older adults, this type of stretching is especially recommended because it helps maintain the functional mobility necessary for basic activities such as bending down, twisting the torso, or lifting the arms, reducing the risk of falls and increasing physical independence. From a longevity standpoint, keeping muscles and tendons elastic means preserving quality of life and delaying the effects of aging on mobility. And in the sports field, band stretching is used not only as part of the warm-up but also in the cool-down phase, helping to reduce post-training tension and prevent overuse injuries. In this way, including resistance band stretches in the daily routine is not just a strategy to improve flexibility, but a comprehensive investment in mobility, joint health, injury prevention, and long-term well-being. This exercise, though underestimated, can make the difference between a stiff and limited body, and one that is agile, strong, and prepared for the challenges of everyday life. The most powerful aspect of this routine is not each exercise in isolation, but the synergy created when combining them into a daily habit. Lateral raises, pike push-ups, face pulls with rings, handstand push-ups, wall squats, glute bridges, and resistance band stretches, all act like gears in the same machine, where each movement strengthens an essential aspect of physical longevity. The science of modern training supports this integration. Studies in geriatrics and exercise physiology agree that the most effective programs to delay physical aging are not those focused only on strength or flexibility, but those that achieve a balance between power, mobility, coordination, and postural control. That is precisely what this routine proposes, inspired by practices that Japanese elders have incorporated for decades to stay agile, stable, and strong into advanced ages. The secret does not lie in excessive intensity, but in consistency and respect for technique, since even 15 to 20 minutes a day can make the difference between a rigid and fragile body, and one capable of moving with energy and confidence. Ultimately, the goal of these exercises is not just to look better in the mirror, but to reclaim the ability to live fully, to get up from a chair without difficulty, to climb stairs without fear of losing balance, to maintain an upright posture that conveys vitality, and even to perform movements many believe reserved for youth. The neuroscience of aging has shown that the brain responds to physical stimulus by creating new neural connections, which means that each repetition not only strengthens muscles but also brain circuits related to balance, motor memory, and coordination. In other words, training the body is also training the mind. So if you adopt these 6 movements as part of your daily routine, you will not only be building strength and mobility but also investing in years of independence, functional youth, and quality of life. Remember, longevity is not just about living longer, but about living better. And that journey begins with a movement as simple as deciding to train today. In this way, these 6 movements are not just an exercise routine, but a true longevity tool that can transform your strength, your posture, and your daily energy, helping you maintain an agile body and an alert mind at any age. Remember, the key is not perfection, but consistency. A little each day can make the difference in your future. If this content inspired you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell, so that more people discover how to stay young, strong, and active throughout life. Your body and your health will thank you. Thank you for watching this video and see you soon.